in the public gallery and anyone watching the meeting via the webcast. To the members of public in the gallery, I would like to remind you that this planning meeting is being broadcast live over the internet, so there is no need for any other filming of the meeting to take place. This meeting is available to view online now and in the future. Committee members, please be aware that we are all on camera and you may be visible on screen when people around you are speaking, and please remember to speak clearly into your microphones. We welcome the use of the Welsh language at meetings. I have had no request for people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. Please can all mobile phones and other noisy devices be put on silent. If there is an emergency alarm, please follow the green signs and go to the ground floor of the Civic Centre car park. Thank you. I'll introduce now the officers. I'll introduce myself. My name's Norma Parish, and to my furthest right, that's Polly Ellis, and she's our solicitor for today. Rachel Beale is on my right, and she's the Senior Business Support Officer. To my left, we have Head of Planning and Development, which is Richard Lewis, and Group Leader, I got to get his position right, Group Leader, Transportation and Highways, Paul Wielden. We have also Team Leader of Applications, Norman Jones, and Principal Planning Officers, Rebecca McAndrew, Helen Smith, and Planner Scott Jenkins. Thank you. Right, we'll go to the agenda. No? Okay. Item 1 on the agenda, attendance and apologies. Do we have any apologies, Rachel?
Yes, we have apologies from Councillors Hugh Bevan, Ron Burnett, Faye Jones and Sue Marson.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. And we go over now to Polly Ellis to give us some advice.
Firstly, remind members that you need to complete the declaration of interest form in the attendance register folder if you are declaring an interest in any of the applications. The declarations, as far as I'm aware, are as follows. Councillor Parish has got a personal non-prejudicial interest in agenda item 8, 9, 11 and 12. Is that right?
That's correct.
As a member of Pontypool Community Council who've been consulted on the application. Councillor Gaynor James, a personal non-prejudicial interest in agenda items 8, 9, 11 and 12, as a member of Pontypool Community Council who've been consulted on the applications. Is that right?
That's correct.
And then Councillor Richard Overton, a personal non-prejudicial interest in agenda items 8, 9, 11 and 12 as a member of Pontypool Community Council who've been consulted on the applications. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And also, just to clarify the comments attributed to ward members on page 127 of the agenda, can you confirm that you're the local ward member for New Inn, but those comments were not made by you?
Yes, I can confirm that I'm the ward member for New Inn, but the comments were made by a fellow ward member and not myself.
Thank you. And then I've got Councillor Stuart Ashley, a personal and non-prejudicial interest in agendas item 5 and 6 as a member of Cumbrian Community Council who've been consulted on the applications. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Then Councillor Janet Jones, a personal and non-prejudicial interest in agenda item 10 as a member of Glenavon Town Council who've been consulted on the application. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
And then Councillor Jason O'Connell, a personal and non-prejudicial interest in agenda item 6, Two Locks Nursery School, as you own a property nearby. Is that correct?
That's correct.
There are no other interests as far as I'm aware.
Councillor Alan Slade. I've got a personal but not prejudicial interest in the planning application 5, or agenda item 5, as it's in my ward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Polly. We can go to the next item, item 3, which is minutes of planning committee that was held on the 25th of July. I expect all members have read the minutes. Do you agree they're a true record? Does somebody move them? Is there a seconder for that? Thank you. Are there any comments or questions on the minutes? No? Right, could we have a show of hands then, all in agreement? Thank you, we're all in agreement. We can go to the next item, which is a planning appeal, item 4. And this is for information for members. Summary of a planning appeal received. It's a rear extension, site address 25 to 27 Victoria Street, Old Cwmbran. Are there any questions from members? No? Right, do we agree to note this information? Can we have a show of hands, please? Thank you. Right, we go to agenda item 5, which is application number 14/P/00449, and it's for 7 detached houses on site of former Apollo service station, which is sited on Llantarnam Road, Cwmbran. And this item is on pages 27 to 48. There was a site visit on the 27th of June. So I take you over now to Rebecca McAndrews, and she'll give us a presentation on this. Thank you, Rebecca.
Right, okay, sorry. The applications for 7 detached houses on Llantarnam Road, 4-bedroom detached houses. You can see here they sit between the entrance to Court Road Industrial Estate opposite Cwmbran, the park there, and some residential properties. So this is the proposed layout. We've got the central access off Llantarnam Road. The existing access is, the existing use is a abandoned petrol station. So we'll show you photos in a minute, and a lot of you were at the site visit. So you'll recall that there's vehicles stored on the site at the moment, and petrol canopies. So it's a bit of a mess. So the existing accesses to the site will be stopped up, and a new central access created. The Highways Officer confirms that the visibility displays when exiting from Court Road onto Llantarnam Road, and also from the site onto Llantarnam Road, will be maintained within the site. Rear accesses to the rear gardens and parking spaces of that for the properties, and just pedestrian gates to the front. And the parking then would be provided here within the gardens. The Highways Officer's happy with the level of parking provided on the site. So you see to the rear there is Court Road Industrial Estate, existing industrial units. We've received an objection to one of the occupiers of one of these properties. He's concerned about the juxtaposition of the residential use and the commercial use. His objections detailed in the report. But basically, we consider this relationship to be satisfactory, because there'd be 27.5 metres retained between this rear elevation here and the rear elevation of the properties. There's this bank in here of grass. There's a landscape strip, a 2.4 metre high wall and fence between the properties, the road and then the garden. So we think that there's a suitable standoff between the two uses. The authority's environmental health officers don't raise any objections to the proposals. They consider that measures can be included within the proposed houses to make sure that there's no noise disturbance to the proposed dwellings from the commercial uses, such as acoustic glazing. And they're also content that any sort of fumes coming from the car spraying business within this unit should not go beyond the perimeter of the industrial boundary in any case, so they're quite happy with that relationship. It should also be noted that the industrial buildings to the rear are on a lower ground level than the property, so you sort of read them as separate. And also, as you can see, this is a residential property here. That's a residential property there with industrial uses behind. So it's quite common on Llantarnam Road to have a mixture of uses. While there's a predominantly residential area, there are other commercial uses in proximity to residential properties. It's a common relationship. So whilst it isn't... whilst we recognise his concerns, and it wouldn't normally... be something that would be encouraged, we think in this instance, given the circumstances, the individual circumstances of the site, that relationship's acceptable. So if I go on now to the design of the houses, so the detached traditional look, which mirrors some of the other traditional properties on Llantarnam Road. You can see in the street scene here, there's bay-fronted properties just south of the site. And that's the street scene of how they would sit in with the adjacent properties, similar roof heights. So they fit in quite well, and obviously that's quite a visual improvement to the existing site, and we feel that, you know, it's something to be encouraged. Here's just some photos of the existing site. So you can see the canopy for the old petrol station that I was talking about, the vehicle storage, and attractive palisade fences, and this currently sits next to these residential properties here. We have received another objection from the property to the south of the site on the basis of concerns about the drainage system for the site. The drainage officer is happy that a satisfactory scheme can be achieved, and the condition of the consent is that should be submitted and approved prior to the commencement of development. That resident is also concerned about how they gain access to maintain the boundary with the site, but obviously you always need permission to go onto an adjoining landowner's land to maintain your boundary, whether it's this commercial use that's there now or a residential use. So that's fine. And again, here you can see the existing residential properties, the access onto Court Road Industrial Estate, and these islands here would be located as part of the scheme as well to get that access in centrally onto the site. Again, there you can see the street scene. So, the proposal also includes Section 106 contributions. There's a 30% affordable housing contribution and contributions towards public open space and recreation, so the developers agreed to pay that. So on balance, we think that whilst there's a juxtaposition of residential and commercial uses, we think that relationship already exists within Llantarnam Road, and on balance, bringing this site back into a residential use would improve the visual amenities of the area and be beneficial. So on balance, it's recommended that consent be granted subject to Section 106 agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Right, it's open up to committee now. Any questions for Rebecca? Jason?
Thank you for that. Two quick questions. You mentioned that the pedestrian islands are being relocated. Are they being wiped out totally, or are they being relocated somewhere else? And does it affect the flow of traffic down Llantarnam Road?
The islands being relocated here to the site. We've done a preliminary scheme, so we're confident that they can be fitted within the frontage of the site, and the lining will be rearranged there to still have a protected right turn into the industrial estate. So we are confident that we can get a scheme there to work. Thank you.
Thank you. My second question relates to... excuse me. The second question relates to the former use of the site being a petrol facility. I assume there's underground tanks and things, and potential for ground contamination. Has that been looked at by Environment Agency or any other authority to make sure that the dwellings are not affected by its former use?
Yeah, our environmental health officers have looked at the scheme and requested that a number of standard conditions relating to contamination are attached to any consent granted, so any contamination would be sorted out as part of those conditions.
Stephen?
I was only going to ask the same sort of question. Would the tanks be left there and emptied, or would they be removed completely?
Normally you'd expect them to be removed from the site.
Any other questions? Stuart?
There was some suggestion that there was actually been a subway thereabouts. Are you aware of that?
No, I'm not. I haven't had any evidence of a subway. I've heard sort of stories about some historic routes down from when there used to be some industrial use on the park, but that was as part of another application. So
The only reason I asked that was because when we were on site visit, somebody did point out that there had been subway somewhere there. I hope it's not on that site. I was they start digging there, they might find it. But it's only that obviously, if there are any unforeseens, they will obviously let you know about that.
yeah, that would be considered under building regs at the construction phase of the stability of the site.
The other concern was that when we were on site, I'm going back to my favourite subject here, by the way, in terms of shielding the thing from dividing the two things, that we're looking at fences, walls, etc., because I accept what you say about having residential there, but obviously behind you've got this mix, and it's from what I can see, it's acceptable, but there needs to be a pretty good definition. You've got hard edge on there. Is it, if you look across the road, they've actually used trees across there, and it seems that would have been preferable in some ways, because it would have acted as a better sort of barrier. But I see, from what we're talking here, we're looking more along the lines of fences and walls, aren't we?
Yeah, so the fence would run on this line.
Rebecca, put your mic on, please.
So there'd be a soft edge between the rear access road and the boundary fence, so there would be planting within that.
Yeah, that sounds better.
Janet?
My concern when we had the site visit was the amount of noise that could happen in the evening, from the units and the spraying units behind. It would be a constant noise, and I wondered, would that be acceptable, or could we alleviate it with, obviously, landscaping a little bit to offset it?
There's been a noise study submitted as part of the application, which actually found that the main source of noise to the site was from the traffic to the front of the property, and that the level of noise that came out of the existing uses to the rear wasn't actually that great and wasn't considered to be so significant to be a nuisance. But in any case, there's a condition that's proposed as part of the consent, which requires that further noise surveys are undertaken before the first house is occupied to demonstrate that measures are put in place, that there's no the noise to that property is below an acceptable level. Yeah, and that would be probably acoustic glazing, things like that. Thanks.
Are there any more questions or comments on this application? Right, are you ready? Has somebody got a motion?
I'll move the offerer's recommendation.
Thank you. You seconded that as well?
I second, yeah.
Right, thank you. Right, are you ready to vote on it? Can we show our hands then? That's to approve this application. Right, that looks unanimous to me. That application has been approved. Right. Item 6. Right. Agenda item 6, which is application number 17/P/0176, and it's the proposal is for construction of 14 residential dwellings and associated works at 2 Locks Nursery School, 2 Locks Road, Cwmbran. And this application is on pages 49 to 78, and there was a site visit on the 9th of August. So it's over to Helen Smith now to give us a presentation. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you. Yes, the application we're looking at today is for full planning permission for 14 residential units. The proposal comprises of 8 one-bed flats, which are located in this block here. And we have 3 sets of semi-detached properties, which are located on this property here, at this part of the site here. So we have 2 Locks Road here and Llwyn Celyn, and the proposed access will be off Llwyn Celyn, leading to a parking area and turning areas. The site will include bin stores and bike storage areas as well. The proposal, the 3 lots of semi-detached properties, the rear of them actually face 2 Locks Road. At the pre-application stage, we did advise them that good design practice is to front them onto the highway to create an active frontage. However, unfortunately, the applicants at Bronavon, they went to the police and Secure by Design, and they were advised that they should be facing into the properties, into the site, so that the parking areas were overlooked to prevent any antisocial behaviour. So as a result of this, we wanted to make sure that the design of the properties still fitted into next with the adjacent properties on 2 Locks Road. So as you can see, where my arrow, there it is. So these are the properties facing, the rear is facing 2 Locks Road, and these are the adjacent properties. So the scale and massing of them do tie in with the existing properties in the area. The block of apartments are modern in design. They're located within the site, so will only be readily visible when you're accessing the site. The applicant has done some artist's impression of what it will look like. So this is the corner of the site, and with 2 Locks Road, on the junction of 2 Locks Road and Llwyn Celyn. And this is looking into the site from the access road, with the flats on the left and the fronts of the residential properties on the right. And here we have another illustration showing 2 Locks Road. These are the adjoining properties surrounding the site. This is the block of flats, and these are the existing properties on Llwyn Celyn. Now, we did have some confusion over the rear boundary on 2 Locks Road following the site visit. Just wanted to clarify that what is proposed in this location is the removal of the hedge that's currently there, and the erection of a 1.5 metre screen wall with a railing above. Now, ideally we would have wanted the hedge to be retained. However, again, from the police advice from Secure by Design, the applicants have been advised by them that wouldn't provide sufficient security for the residents. So we have, from a planning point of view, accepted the screen wall, the brick wall. We wouldn't have been happy with a fence, but a quality brick screen wall we felt in this location would be acceptable. And here are some photographs of the site. So this is the nearest property on Two Locks Road, where you can see the hedge there on the left. So this will be replaced by a brick screen wall. These trees are to be removed. However, as you can see, they are currently having an impact on the power lines, and they would need to be taken down or at least trimmed down to a very low level in the future. This is a strip of land adjacent to the school. Here we have the school buildings. This is, as part of the proposal, there's a beech tree in the centre of the site which has to be removed as it sterilises a large part of the development. What we've done is we've asked them to provide a replacement beech tree within the site as part of their landscaping scheme to compensate for the loss of that tree. This is the adjoining property. This is also a Bronavon property. The access will be within this area here. Now there is, the tenant in this property has one parking space here, and we've negotiated with the applicant to provide an alternative parking space to the rear within the site. Here we have the corner of the property. Oh, there we go. The application is subject to Section 106 agreement. It's 100% affordable housing at the moment as it's Bronavon application. However, there's a minimum requirement of 30%, so we have that secured as part of the 106 agreement. There's also contributions towards play facilities, as none can be provided on the site, and an adult recreation contribution as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Right, it's open to committee. Any questions? Stephen first.
What impact will the traffic have on that main road going into that new development?
The Highways Officer would like to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think when you look at the impact of a development, you would also need to look at the previous use of the site. It was a school site. Obviously, you get trips from a residential development. You usually get between 6 and 9 trips per household per day, which in the grand scheme of things for a development such as this is not a significant amount, to be honest. When you look at the number of cars that already travel a route, already travel Two Locks Road, etc., and you put this traffic onto it and you add it to it, it doesn't make a significant amount of difference. To be honest, residents in the local area will hardly notice the difference of this development on the overall traffic scenario that occurs in any event. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Jason, I'm sorry, I forgot your name for a minute. Thank you, Jason.
2 quick points. I've got a question on the orientation of those semi-detached buildings. Every other property, I believe, on Two Locks Road has their frontage to the road itself. So where or at what point do you balance the advice from the police by the Safer by Design against the existing orientation of the buildings?
We do come across this quite a lot. It's more common in applications by registered social landlords, because as part of their funding package they have to get secure by design approval. It is a balance. Ideally we would have preferred it fronting onto it, but we do accept that in this circumstances, if you had them fronting onto the highway, it could cause problems within the site in terms of any antisocial behaviour, in terms of less overlooking with other parking areas. In this instance, we've tried to get the rear elevations to tie in with the adjacent properties in terms of their scale and their massing, and also we've secured a screen brick wall as opposed to fencing. So all those little amendments will hopefully overcome a lot of the concerns in terms of the visual and the design impact of having them backing onto Two Locks Road. But it is always a balance to be had, and in this case we felt that on balance it was acceptable, whilst ideally good design practice is to have them fronting onto the main roads.
Thank you. Stuart, do you want to come in?
Yeah. I was reflecting on the conversation that we had about that wall and hedges and various bits and pieces, and am I correct in saying that social landlords like Bronavon are covered by the same thing that we are as a council, which is Health and Wellbeing Act? And as such, how would design like this, have they covered that act by the design that they're providing for their tenants?
I don't quite know if I think they are covered by the Health and Wellbeing Act. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think they probably are. In terms of the fact that we've assessed the impacts on residential amenity, not just existing residents but future residents, and we deem it to be acceptable. I would say that their design and their approach to their design, and they've got grass roofs on some of the garages, and the way that they have tried to make a good quality contemporary environment. I would say that they have met those requirements from, as we've assessed it and considered to be acceptable accommodation, level of amenity, and general design concepts of the layout.
My management of this thing.
Stuart, could you start it again, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
What I was reflecting on, obviously, with a social landlord it's a different from a buy-to-purchase setup. Obviously, that they would be providing tenants with an environment that's somewhat different to a purchase type thing. I mean, it does look a reasonable design, but various aspects of this obviously will have to last over a period. I'm trying to sort of grasp here how they would go about that, and I mean, my only issue with it is that fronting onto that road and noise and environmental issues there, and you're satisfied that that's been approached satisfactorily?
Yes, yeah, I'm happy with the level of amenity those future occupiers will have, and also Bronavon would probably say that the fact that it benefits from approval of Secure by Design from the police, that creates a safe environment for their tenants as well.
Right, Jason.
The car park opposite is in quite a state of disrepair. It always has been as long as I've been involved in the area. It always has drainage issues. With the increase in usage in what I assume will be that car park from visitors and such like, are there any plans to improve the car park, put markings on the road, improve the drainage, etc.?
It's awful difficult with a development as such as this when car parking provision is within the site itself. As I explained within my report, there was a little bit of visitor parking that I think is probably one space, if I remember right. And I did comment, well, that I would have liked it on site, and I tried to get it on site, but unfortunately the applicant didn't amend the plan. So I'm quite happy to say, well, look, there is a car park opposite, and a visitor or visitors can be accommodated in that car park. Now, getting contributions from developers for improving things which they would say, well, that is the council's responsibility, or the car park owner's responsibility. Trying to get contributions for things like that is extremely difficult. So while I note your concerns, all I can advise members is that it is really difficult to get contributions unless you can prove that that is actually linked to that car park. Well, it's a bit difficult when, as you know, we're saying, well, look, you can use the space within that car park. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Stephen, you want to come in?
What I'd like to ask, this particular area is, according to the report, is a high risk of flooding. Now, what's in place to stop these proposed developments being flooded in the future?
Yeah, it's part of the area is, and actually the boundary of the flood risk area just skirts along the bottom of the site there. Now, as a very small part of the site was in the flood risk area, it sort of ticked the boxes requiring a flood risk assessment. Now, and the applicants have carried that out, so they've done hydraulic modelling of the site and any likely flooding issues. We've consulted the NRW. They are satisfied that the site itself is not at risk of flooding because the updated flooding maps, it is literally just this little bit by here.
Thank you. Right, are there any more questions? Comments from members? Is anybody ready to put a motion? No.
I'd like to move the officer's recommendation of approval.
Thank you. So it's been moved. Would somebody second that? It's been seconded.
I'll second that, Councillor Parish.
Thank you. I think somebody seconded it, but he didn't put his microphone on, so it wasn't picked up. Okay, then it's been moved and seconded. You ready to vote on it? And that's for approval of this application. Okay, ready to vote? Right. That's unanimous again. This application has been approved. Right, we go to agenda item 7, which is 17/P/0340, and the proposal is for alteration/extension of existing dwelling, construction of new raised patio and retention of double garages sited at 5 Bryn Goma, Crossy-Ceiliog, Cwmbran. And it's on pages 79 to 90, and I got an update to read to the committee regarding this application. This application was considered by the Council's Planning Committee on the 25th of July 2017. At the meeting, members of the Planning Committee indicated that on the information before them, they had concerns about the development, and a detailed debate around those concerns was held. A motion to approve the application in accordance with the officer's recommendation was defeated. Further discussions then took place in relation to appropriate reasons for refusal. Members of the Planning Committee agreed that officers should note their concerns and bring back appropriately worded reasons for refusal to this Planning Committee for their consideration. This option is routinely given to members when they consider making a determination which goes against the officer's recommendation. No decision to refuse the application has yet been taken, and no decision notice has been issued. The application remains undetermined. This report outlines the current position and suggested reasons for refusal within the background section. Members will note that an appeal has been lodged by the applicant, but this does not prevent the Planning Committee from making its decision on the application. Members are now invited to consider the application and come to a decision. Right.
I'll come in now if I can with the late items.
Pardon?
Can I come in with the late items?
Yes, you want to come in first? Right. Richard wants to come in. He's got some more information, late items on this to update us. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 late items, really. The applicant's agent earlier today submitted computer-generated image, which is on the screen at the moment. I believe he circulated it to all the members of Planning Committee, which shows the proposed extensions in the street scene. I'm not proposing to comment on that at all, it's just for the members' information. And also, one of the objectors, Anne Phillips, has submitted some information that she wanted raised at the Planning Committee. Again, this has been circulated to all the members of Planning Committee. And Anne Phillips is an objector to the application and a resident of the area. And she is saying that, as far as she is concerned, members have already refused the application at the last committee. Is concerned that the delay in the determination seems to enable the applicant to proceed without regard to the decision of the Planning Committee. That the officer recommending approval should not be worded in the reasons for refusal. The reasons for refusal fail to include several significant points made by members, which includes the issue of materials and those issues made by objectors. For example, the impact on the neighbour at number 3 in terms of dominance, and the reflective cladding on the newly designed roof, which is not suited to a residential area. The report is an attempt to minimise the arguments for refusal. And then finally, the reason for this meeting is not to approve or refuse, rather to endorse or expand on the reasons for refusal suggested in the report. And again, I don't intend to comment on that. I'll draw your attention to the statement that the Chair read out and the report itself. And it's now open to members to make their determination. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Richard. Right. So over to members. Do you want to comment at this stage, Norman, or wait for questions? Is it?
No comment, Chair.
Okay. Right. Any questions? Comments from members? Jason?
Yeah, more of a comment that the inspector mentioned that the existing dwelling is poorly designed and so what they did. That it doesn't make a positive contribution to the character and the appearance of its surroundings. My opinion, for what it's worth, is that the new design doesn't make a positive contribution or enhance the character. Excuse me. It doesn't enhance the character or appearance of its surroundings either. It's a well-designed building, but the location on which they're proposing it on this street, in my view, which is obviously a lay view, doesn't fit with the character and appearance of the rest of the street.
Thank you for that. Are there any other comments, questions? Stuart?
Right. We did struggle with this, but it comes down to the to what it's said here really, which is it comes down to the design and form of the development having an unduly overbearing oppressive impact on the street scene and properties opposite and below, if you want. And that is really was the last was what I think members were trying to grasp at the last meeting. And I think this is where we were all coming from. We're not happy with it in the slightest. I don't know, I'm not speaking for my fellow members, but I suspect they might add something to that.
Right. Does anybody want to add to that? Because it's up to you now to determine this application. Right, I've got two hands up. Stephen and then Jason.
On the last one, the inspector, he's still saying it's a large mass of a building. And I still think it's the same now, even after alterations.
Okay, Jason.
I was just going to motion that we move to dismiss based on, or refuse, sorry, based on the feeling of other members here.
Yeah, can you say that again, please, Jason? You are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you need to discuss some more, we can do that. But my feel from the discussion so far has been that the members are of a mind to refuse the application. So that was my motion.
So that's the motion, that's the proposal. Right, we've had a proposal to... Do you want to come in?
I do.
Oh, right, our legal advisor's coming in.
Are you proposing a refusal based on the reason for refusal contained in the report?
Yes.
I'm happy to go. I'm happy to go along, but I just do think if Jason would let us go with that, that we would actually discuss it a little bit more, if we could, please. If you're content to do that.
Right. So it's been proposed you were seconding the thing. Yeah. Shall I read out the officer's paragraph? Right. In the opinion of the local planning authority, the development fails to overcome the previous reason for refusal and considers the design and form of the development to have an unduly overbearing and oppressive impact on the street scene and property opposite, and is not suited to the local context, contrary to policies BW1 and S4 of the Torfaen Local Development Plan and the advice given in TAN 12. So are you ready to vote on that? Yes? Can I have a show of hands?
I did say that we need to have a slight. I did suggest we'd like to have further discussion before we vote.
Oh, you want further discussion?
Yeah. Are we?
I didn't think anybody else wanted to speak.
Okay.
Well, if anybody else wants to speak, they're welcome to do so. No other comments?
No, okay.
Right, it's a motion to refuse and it's been seconded. I've read out the officers' paragraph they've composed for you. So we are voting on that now. Can I have a show of hands? This is for refusal. Any against? No. And I'm abstention. There's one abstention. So this application has been refused. Right. Right. Right, we go to item agenda 8, which is application 17/P/0484. And the proposal is for alterations and extensions to the existing infant unit, integrated children's centre and dining hall, including a 2-storey classroom extension and an extended play area at Pennegarn Road, Pontypool. This agenda item is on pages 91 to 101. And Scott, who is in position, Scott will give us a presentation. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Chair. This is a full planning application submitted by Torfaen Council's Education Department. The application essentially comprises 4 separate extensions which are highlighted in sort of purple on that plan. Also a proposed new play area to the south of the site in yellow, and also recladding work within the northern cluster of buildings in this area here. So in regards to the recladding work, the works seek to overclad the existing structure with a more modern cladding system to hopefully improve the appearance of the buildings and give a bit more of a contemporary feel. The 3 photos on the top are the sort of a selection of buildings which will be affected, and obviously the visuals underneath show what the cladding will look like. These are just 3D visuals showing the extensions as proposed. As you'll sort of note, the extensions are sympathetic to the relevant parts of the building in regards to design, in terms of the finish or the scale. Okay. So in order to achieve that southern play area, which is highlighted in the green shading on the top extract, there's 3 trees proposed to be removed. Mitigation is proposed along the side of the building with these 3 trees here. There is an omission in the report that the tree officer didn't provide a response. He did provide a response saying that any trees to be felled should be mitigated on site. that is addressed within the assessment section of the report. But given that scheme shown there, that that conforms with the tree officer's sort of recommendation. In terms of the proposed play area shown on the sort of extract below here in sort of a yellow, there was an objection received that on the grounds of noise pollution. So in regards to that area, there's a 25-metre buffer from the activity area to the relevant elevation on Pennygarn Cottage and Rose Cottage. The area itself will sort of measure total area width of about 312 metres squared. I have assessed it on site. Relevant photos taken here show, looking towards the relevant properties, there is quite a large significant buffer there of mature vegetation. And also the photograph from B here shows there's a sort of access lane, vehicle access lane here, showing sort of a secure boundary between the proposed play area and also the residential properties. So given the sort of vegetation buffer, the separation distances, and also that the area does currently have activity from school children in break periods, we've considered the relationship to be acceptable in that regard.
Yes, Richard would like to come in now. Thank you.
Yeah, just to explain the recommendation, I need to slightly adjust it. There are bats present in the building. We've consulted with our ecologist and he's quite happy with the mitigation proposals that they are recommending, and they are covered by conditions in the recommendation. But NRW, the Natural Resources Wales, they were consulted on the application, but we've received no response from them yet. Rather than wait another 4 weeks, because these things are always urgent to get done, I'm recommending that if you are minded to approve the application, that you allow me to deal with the application under delegated powers, but only subject to receiving no objections from NRW. Now, if I do receive objections from NRW, then I will be coming back to committee. But in the event that we don't, that you allow me to deal with the application under delegated powers. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions? Stuart and then Jason.
What species of tree are we talking about and what vegetation are we talking about?
The soft landscaping scheme was provided as part of the application, but the proposed species of tree wasn't indicated, so there is a condition on the sort of permission to say that those details need to be provided and approved by us prior to works commencing.
Are you removing?
Yeah, it is within the tree survey they provided. We will make sure that the relevant species will be put in as part of mitigation. So,
are they acting as wind buffering up on that site? Because I do know that one slightly well.
I'd imagine they probably do have a slight wind buffer. There is quite a large band of trees running along the periphery of the site, which I couldn't see that they would have that much of an impact removing the central three. Hopefully the sort of perimeter would keep that.
Jason?
Yeah, it may be an obvious question given recent events, but you can't say the word cladding without thinking of Grenfell, so just to make sure that the materials being used for that cladding are not those used in that same disaster.
I think you can safely assume that the council is aware of that and it will be dealt with under the building regulations as well. Yeah.
John Haller, then Louise.
Page 99, item 5 says that any plants or trees that die back within a 5-year period will be replaced.
Yeah.
Who's in charge of checking on that? I mean, it's quite a lapse in time there.
Yeah, it's a standard condition. I can't promise you that we go out every 5 years and check on that. We have landscape officers in the council. They're obviously around and about the borough. we sometimes get to know about it because residents may let us know. Where we are aware of it, we will take action. But in all honesty, no, it would be very difficult to monitor every site.
Louise?
There's no sort of parking is horrendous at the minute at Pennygarn School, and this is obviously going to make it a little bit bigger to accommodate the children from Victoria Village School. Why is parking not come into this at all? Anyway, it's desperately needed, and obviously the safest is to get them to and from school safest. But there's nothing for any extra parking.
Okay, right, I'll bring the Highways officer in for this question. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I understand what you're saying regarding how that school currently operates. There are problems outside the school during pick-up and set-down times. My understanding from my conversations with our property people and with education was that the refurbishment of this school was to cater for thereabouts near enough the same numbers that currently go there. So we didn't base this on any context of trying to get any improvements to car parking within our area, because all our understanding and my understanding from talking to our people was that this was to redevelop this school to make it better for the people that actually go to that school, not to bring in significant more numbers into the site. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any more questions? Anybody prepared to put a motion? Stuart?
I'll move on the proviso of what Richard said about the NRW, because that's the crucial one, and a plan to come back if necessary.
Yes.
And it's been seconded?
Yeah, I'll second it.
A motion has been put for approval with the caveat, of course, of Richard's delegated powers if necessary, and has been seconded. Are you ready now to vote on approval of this application? Right. That looks unanimous to me. So this application has been approved. Right, it's over to item agenda 9, and this is application number 17/P/0541, and the proposal is for position of 2 storage containers to the north side of the Bowls Pavilion, both to be timber clad, and it's sited at Panteg Park, Cuddy Road, Griffithstown, and this application is on pages 103 to 108, and it's over to Norman Jones. He will give a short presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As you said, the position of these containers will be to the north of the Bowls Pavilion. It is proposed to clad them in wood and give them a shallow pitch roof and stain them. That will reflect the current Bowls Pavilion, and the containers are used to house machinery, fertilisers, etc., for use in on the bowling green. That opens up space for the friends in the park to use the main building within the park for community usage. The proposal was the subject of a previous application which was withdrawn following objections, but this one we're recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Stuart?
Just nice to see containers now being considered to be clad with timber, which makes them look a bit more presentable than normal.
Yes, you're right there. Stephen, you got a question?
Well, these containers, if they're metallised, will they be, how safe and secure will they be with the actual goods that are in there, particularly fertilisers and equipment?
Currently, that is stored within the brick building. Obviously, that's the intention is for these to be secure, and it'll be up to the applicants to ensure that it's in their interest. So they put this forward. Obviously, the containers should be secure from their interest, and from our interest, we wanted them clad to improve the visual appearance.
Thank you. Any more questions? Is anyone prepared to put a motion? Stuart?
I'll move that. No conditions.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So you are going with the officer's recommendation of approval?
Recommendation, yeah.
Okay, you all understand that now? It's for approval. Right, we'll vote on it. That again is everyone. So that application has been approved. Right. Agenda item 10, which is 17/P/0617 PMT. And the proposal is for installation of a 15 monopole supporting 3 antennas and 3 300 diameter dishes, and the installation of 2 equipment cabinets, and they're cited at Goss Tools and Engineering Limited, Heritage Court, Gilchrist Thomas Industrial Estate, Blaenavon. And Norman's going to do a short presentation on this one again. Thank you, Norman.
Thank you, Chair. This is one of 3 applications, prior notification applications, that we've got on the agenda. Just to make members aware that with prior notifications of this type, we have to make a decision within 56 days, otherwise it's a deemed approval, and sometimes developers have utilised that part of the legislation. However, in this particular case, the position of this proposal is on an area of land which is used for occasional parking. It is hardcored. It's on the edge of the industrial estate. There are properties approximately 100 metres away. However, what you will see from the photographs here is a substantial band of trees there. And we've got no issue in terms of the positioning of that or the loss of a small amount of industrial land. It will improve the coverage in the area, and you'll note in the report there is support from the local member and one resident also for this. In terms of the World Heritage Site, we don't think this will be a detrimental to the overall outstanding universal values, and we're recommending approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Is anyone prepared to...
I think so. Sorry. I would recommend that we go with the officer's recommendations, because there is a need for this in Blaenavon, and I have been there myself, and I agree that I don't think it will cause any problems with the heritage site as it is. Yes.
You're I didn't have my mic on then. You're proposing approval. Thank you.
Can I second that?
Right, we've got a second. Are you ready to vote on it? Thanks. Raise your hands then if you approve. Right, that's another unanimous one. That application has been approved. Right, item 11. Application number 17/P/0618 PMT. Proposal installation of a 15-metre monopole supporting 6 antennas, 2 dishes, ground-based equipment cabinets and ancillary development, and it's sited at land at junction of Church Road and Commercial Road, Talloway, Pontypool. And Norman's going to give a quick presentation again. Thank you, Norman. You haven't got your thing. Could you start again, please?
Sorry, Chair. Again, this is a 15-metre prior notification proposed on highway land, back edge of footpath. There is a build out there in terms of the highway width. The main consideration, as you'll see from the report, is the positioning in relation to a Grade 2 listed church, which sits, you can see it there in the outline of the proposal, and also the residential properties which haven't been occupied yet, but there's a new development there of a residential property. And in terms of the height, you can see the difference in height of ridgeline of the residential property of 7 metres, 15 metres to the top of the pole. Those properties are in close proximity. We've got, and this is a photograph taken of the site, and I don't know if members can pick that up, but we worked hard previously to get a good design next to a listed building here. Whilst the church is not in the best repair, our conservation officer feels that isn't a reason to further detract from the setting of the listed building. We've got a duty as the local planning authority to take into that consideration, and we feel that putting a 15-metre high mast in that position will detract from this listed building, and also in relation to the residential properties there, and we're recommending refusal on that basis. This actually shows a montage of that the developer put in, and that is the pole. You can see it in relation to the properties that are there. It will actually be above the ridge height of the church as well, the main ridge.
Thank you, Norman. Right, there's two in the back. Who was first? Louise first, then Jason. Thank you.
Is there another site you could propose to them? Because, like you say, going back to phone signal at that area is not good.
We recognise that there is a need in the area, and that's why it's come forward. However, and whilst they have looked at other sites, we feel they have chosen a site which is within highway limits, where they've got statutory powers to go in should we grant approval. However, there is council land, for example, within the area where possibly they could investigate, and if it's appropriate. I spoke to our asset management team today, and provided it's appropriate, then and the council may accept an approach as landowners. So there is other potential in the vicinity, and we have offered to work with the companies to seek an alternative site which doesn't give us the problems that we consider in this case.
Thank you, Norman. Jason.
A similar theme. I'm trying to get into my head the benefit that this will have for the community in terms of volume. So I'm assuming the polls will address cellular communications as well as data. And I noticed on one of the plans here it was labelled as Vodafone. So is it just that company's products, or just that company's network, if you like, or will it cover the whole mobile network, being all providers?
No, it won't, as I understand it, cover all providers. I think this is a joint venture between two of the companies, but it won't cover all providers.
Right, Neil, you wanted to come in?
I did put it on, it went off.
Elaine, I think. Sorry about that.
Yes, Madam Chair. I don't think a listed building being right by the side of a listed building, I don't think that's appropriate at all. There's many other places up around that area, which I know quite well, that could be used and utilised without disrupting a building of that status. And I would recommend that we reject the application.
I think there are a few people. You are proposing we refuse it. Yeah, but there are a few people who would like to speak first. So, Stephen, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, all I was going to say, you showed a front projection of it behind the church. Have you got an image of the side view? Because knowing that area, there's buildings alongside that. Just to give me.
Sorry, Chair. As you approach going north, that is probably the main element that you see it from. You will see it coming from south, but you see it side on to that, to the church. But in terms of looking at the front elevation of the church and also the front elevation of those properties, we feel it will dominate both the residential properties and also the setting of that listed building.
My concern is, if you come in the other way from the garden down, it'd be more prominent because you'll see a lot more of that area before you actually hit that spot.
You want to say that again?
Coming from the garden down, rather than going up, you will see that mast a lot more coming past the church than you would be seeing it from that position.
Saying it will be very prominent.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Okay. You don't need a reply, do you, from the officer for that?
Sorry?
You don't need the officer to come back and reply to that. Yeah, it's just a point. Yes, thank you. Yes. Did you want Stuart?
Yeah.
Yes, Stuart, then John.
I take your point of what a 15-metre pole looks like. We had some last council like this where they're stuck in prominent positions, dominate the street scene, and really I take your view where you said earlier that they could be, it's for their benefit, not our benefit, and the community's benefit, and that issue about siting it somewhere. The signal might not be good up there, but really it's up to the companies to seek the position, and I would agree with people proposing and refuse it, because that's horrendous. That's a nice little scene there, and as such with that listed building, and I've been past that quite a few times on the bus, because that's the main bus route there, and it works. And if that could be restored, that building, which it is, it does look very nice. And that whole thing will be lost, that massive great pole. There's quite a movement at the moment to take back these street scenes without the poles and put some stuff there. And that would be lost if put that thing in there.
Thank you, Stuart. John?
I don't know if I'm right, but with St Thomas's, just to the right of the church, weren't there graves there? Or have they been reinterred?
Yeah.
Yes, you're correct. So the position of the mast, or the proposed mast, is actually next to the church wall and next to the graveyard behind. So yes, it's immediately adjacent to the curtilage of the church, and the wall of the church would be considered to be a listed structure in its own right.
Right. Oh, Jason, you want to come back in?
Yeah, I think I'd like to hear from the ward member on what the community feels would be of more benefit to them, whether they feel that the street scene would be spoiled by it, or whether they feel that the lack of communication and data in this day and age is more of a hindrance. I'd certainly welcome that view.
Right. If I can come back, Chair. Yeah, the ward members, Councillor Giles Davis, it is in report. his concern is that it's close proximity to retirement bungalows and St Thomas's Court, declaring an interest. Councillor Ray Williams doesn't object to a mobile mast being erected in the area, as mobile reception isn't very good, which is acknowledged, though I do object to the mast being placed on the area in question.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Because we've had a proposal to refuse this. And did you second it, Stuart? Yeah. I know you agreed with it, you are the seconder. So we'll vote now for refusal of this application. Right, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those against? 1 against. Any abstentions? 1 abstention. Right, thank you. That application has been refused. Right, we go to item agenda 12, which is application 17/P/0622 PNT. Proposal, the proposed installation of a 15-metre Jupiter S-pole supporting 3 antenna, 2 300mm transmission dishes together with associated ground-based cabinets and ancillary development thereto, and it's land at the highway Newin, Pontypool. And Norman's going to give us a short presentation again on this one. Thank you, Norman.
Thank you, Chair. This proposal is adjacent to a bus stop along the highway in Newin. We have received a late representation from a local resident, basically objecting to the proposed siting on the basis of the fact that it is potentially be obstructive due to the reducing the width of the pavement at that point, possibly forcing people to step off the pavement and creating a highway danger. So he makes that point. He suggests there's potentially more suitable sites in the area where it could be located, and he also considers the mast to be unsightly. I draw members' attention to the comment from the ward member. The ward member was actually Councillor Ray Mills, who and his comments are reported on page 127, and so those comments are from Councillor Mills. In terms of, as I said, it's adjacent to the bus stop. It will be placed at the back edge, or proposed to be placed at the back edge of pavement, and 15-metre high proposed mast. And these are looking, so the position of the equipment will be in this area here. Obviously the main route through Newin, and we've received a Highways Officer's objection to this proposal, which we're supporting, and we're recommending refusal based on the interference with the bus stop and the potential for putting a shelter the region.
Thank you, Norman. Right, any comments, questions? Yes, Richard?
Thank you for your comments. But when I first looked at this proposal, I naturally assumed that the location would be the piece of land vacated by Mayburn vans. But closer scrutiny, I found it is actually going to be on the pavement of the public highway. So, for that reason, and for the obtrusiveness in adjacent to residential areas, I support the officer's recommendation for refusal.
That's a proposal, is it? Right, thank you, Richard. Is there a seconder?
Yeah.
Right. Stuart seconding, and we've got 2 seconders. Can I come in by there just a second? Yes, yes.
Sorry, can I just make that clear? Our reason for refusal reflects the obstruction aspect and the fact that if we did want to build a bus shelter in the future, this would prejudice that from happening. But we haven't objected to it on the fact that it's close to residential properties. We feel that there are masts in the area close to residential properties, and it's not in principle a problem. There will be some cases where we feel it's too close. But just to make it clear, our recommendation is not based on that. So if members want to refuse it on that reason, they would have to add that to the motion.
I apologise. The residential aspect was a comment from myself and not reflecting the officer's comments.
So you go along with the officer's recommendation and the reason? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, Richard. Stuart, I think you seconded that, and Gaynor did. Right. Are there any more comments or questions? If there aren't any more, we'll vote on it. This is to refuse the application. Pardon? That's unanimous.